So I got a request from a YouTube subscriber to do a video about spiritual bypassing. And it's my pleasure to discuss spiritual bypassing with you because it's kind of a problem in the general spiritual community. Everybody thinks that spiritual is good. Now, I wouldn't say that spiritual is bad. Would you? Certainly not. But it isn't good either. It's neither of those. Consciousness, spirit, spiritualism, right? It's non-duality. It's the one. The mind is duality. So, in the discipline of spiritualism, this is represented by the yin and yang symbol. This is the mind, the physical world also, right? And then the soul, consciousness, ultimate reality, etc., from our perspective, is going to be non-duality, a single point. It has no opposite, right? You'll hear the spiritual teacher or the spiritual person talking about, I feel at one with everything. What are they talking about? Well, unity, consciousness, which is where the word union comes from. That's what people in the twin flame community, they use that word. They just use it the wrong way. They think it's a relationship status with their twin flame. That's not what that is. It's a state of consciousness where you remember that you are all things. And it's not that you're connected to all things. You are that. It's just one thing. And that's you, all of it. That's all of it. It's one thing, right? It's not duality. Duality is where there's a me and there's a you, right? That's separation. That's where that word really came from. That's not a twin flame word. Separation, duality, right? In science, they call it relativity. Non-duality, they call singularity, the complete breakdown of the universe as we know it, the universe of relativity, or where the universe came from, singularity too. So, without separation, there is only perfection. So everything, and I mean everything, is you pushed out. Even the most horrible thing that you could think of, like fucking Adolf Hitler. That's a bitter pill for people to swallow. This is why people often are turned off by spiritual teachers when they find out, wait a minute, so you're saying I'm all things? Heaven and hell? They don't like that. I can't fault them for that. And this is where spiritual bypassing comes into play. And moral relativism too. Because you don't have to say that you agree with things. You could still use your discernment. So let's talk about spiritual bypassing first, now that I've done a little bit of setup. Spiritual bypassing is basically where you make the assumption that spiritual is only good, and we're only allowed to have nice, yummy, good things. This is why you have, like, I don't know, cancel culture and people that are so paranoid about experiencing an emotion that they have to create safe spaces on college campuses and stuff like that. I mean, these are extreme examples that I'm picking, but, or, you know, people sometimes, I mean, they kind of see that I'm just this kind of I've been called a wonderful rascal. I've asked people before, you know, what kind of spiritual teacher would you prefer? The kind of like monotone, quiet, Yoda type, right? Like Yoda from Star Wars, or the wonderful rascal. And they said, I would like the wonderful rascal. Okay, well, you might like Alan Watts then. Or Ram Dass, right? So Ram Dass, he said, when you see something that you don't like, just remember it's just God in drag. So when you see Adolf Hitler, not good. But That's just God in drag, and that sounds fucking ridiculous to the average person, right? So again, spiritual bypassing is saying, no, spiritual is good only, and we're only allowed to have good things. And, like if I get angry or frustrated, for example, and somebody sees that, they go, oh, triggered, oh, triggered, oh, you're not spiritual. That Kurt, he's really fake, man. He got mad one time. That's not spiritual. Oh, see, you're in your ego. I get that all the time from people. I just did a live stream like a month ago, and I was like, no, I'm not having it. I told the person, no, I'm not having it in the live stream. And they go, you're in your ego, right? So spiritual bypassing is saying that you're not allowed to do this dance with duality. You're not allowed to experience human emotions. You're not allowed to get frustrated, mad, sad. Emotions are to be avoided, at all costs unless it's an emotion I like happiness and joy and sunshine. Now, I'm not saying to embrace negativity, of course, but guys, you live on Earth, bro. There's gonna be challenges. Spiritualism has nothing to do with your emotional state at all. Emotions are the mind, guys. And we're not saying that's bad, and that's the whole point. Spiritual bypassing is where you say something is not spiritual because it doesn't fit your idea of what's good. So that's not spiritual. I can't do that. Or even worse, so that's gaslighting other people is what that is. Or even worse, gaslighting yourself, right? Like invalidating your own feelings. Guys, you're a human. You're going to have emotions. That's the way it is. But that has nothing to do with spiritualism. The only thing spiritualism provides for you is this remembrance of self. And the remembrance of self allows you to experience yourself as the awareness of the human mortal person. Listen to that again. The awareness of self does nothing more than allow you to be aware of the experience of yourself as the human mortal person. You experience this emotion, but there's an experiencer. There is an experience at the core. There is that awareness of the emotional ego mind, the pain body, which also can be the joy body, right? But to bypass is to invalidate somebody else's feelings or your feelings. And what's really interesting about like New Age types, you guys hear me talking about the New Agers all the time because they're like expert level spiritual bypassers, right? The people who bypass you and invalidate you for having normal human emotions, the next day, maybe somebody cuts them off in traffic and they get pissed off. They get mad. And then you know what they do? They start talking about how they need to do more fucking healing or whatever. And then they call themselves spiritual. Right. Because they think that spiritual is a personality type. Healing is fine, but that's psychology, guys. And you can do psychology. I don't have any problem with that. I recommend it, actually. But it's not going to work without this awareness of self first. The consciousness of self should precede any mental or emotional narrative. The consciousness of self, type that in the chat. Type that in the comments. Remember that. Write that down. The consciousness of self should precede any mental or emotional narrative or analyzation. Spiritual bypassing is dangerous, you guys, because you're going to be shamed for having normal human responses to experiences. That's ridiculous. And the thing is, what the awareness of self is and does for you is it allows you to actually process emotions faster and better. Like you're able to manage emotions better. You'll find that when you do get angry, it dissipates faster. When you get sad, it dissipates faster. And when you feel positive emotions that you do like, they last longer because there's a consciousness behind all of that, which is managing the emotional self, the pain body ego, the ego mind. Remember, you're a three-part being, body, mind, soul, but the soul should be in control of the body and the mind, not the other way around. Spiritual bypassing is just narcissism, basically. Now, the same could be said of moral relativism, which is where you take the part of spiritualism that says, yeah, everything is you pushed out, so killing is okay, rape is okay, nothing is ever bad, stealing is fine, it's all just the same. Just as like giving somebody a hug, it's all just the same. Well, it's not the same, guys. There is light and dark. Those are not the same. They come from the same place, yes, but moral relativism is taking that like too far and ignoring the fact that you could be using your discernment. And this is a problem for both spiritual bypassers and moral relativists, which is conflating discernment with judgment, like saying judgment and discernment is the same thing. That's why, like, when I stand on my heels and I stand up for what I know to be true, not my truth. That's more bypassy, my truth. No. There is the truth, and then there's your opinion. Okay, those aren't the same things. But when I stand up for the truth, and then somebody tells me that I'm in my ego, and they think I'm being mean and rude, it's because they think that judgment and discernment are the same. They're not the same, guys. Discernment is where you ask yourself, what serves me? What serves me? Does it serve me to believe lies? Does it serve me to allow people to manipulate me? And I have, again, the awareness to look at these things rationally. There's not going to be any kind of rationalism at all in your world without awareness first. Notice everything I'm talking about in this video is all mental and emotional stuff, like I'm analyzing concepts and emotions, right? So moral relativism and spiritual bypassing have got absolutely nothing to do with spiritualism, and neither does the answer to the antithesis to moral relativism and spiritual bypassing. Neither those things nor the response to those things, the proper response to those things, the rejection of those things, none of those is spiritual. That's all concept. And that's fine. Somebody said, make a video about this, Kurt. And I think I should. This is something that's very important. I actually spend a lot of time talking about this in both my Introduction to the Journey for Twin Flames course and Manifest Your Dream Life. Because again, guys, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of pollution on the internet. I guess you could call it spiritual pollution. It's not spiritual. But there is much confusion and pollution on the internet about what is spiritual. And every time you look at it, it's all like psychology and metaphysics with spiritual bypassing and moral relativism thrown in there. And again, moral relativism is where you're saying everything is okay. Well, maybe everything is not okay. Because when I look at a guy like Adolf Hitler, I say to myself, well, that doesn't serve me. And that doesn't serve anybody. And yeah, I realize that that's just the all, God, doing some fucking weird, really weird shit. Like, why would you do? I don't know, dude. I don't know. I'm not God, dude, and neither are you. So I don't know, bro. Why is there Satan? Why are there bad people? I don't know, bro. Ask God. God's trying to act all fucked up. It's like Ram Dass said, it's just God in drag. And again, that word God, people, that word God has been so perverted because everybody thinks God means good. I wouldn't say God means bad, but God is just the all. I think that's a better way to put it, the all. It's just all that is. Instead of saying God, you could just say the all, right? That's what Hermes did. And that's what I often do. This sounds fucked up. It sounds fucked up to some people, I know, to say that everything is God. That sounds fucked up to a lot of people. But they just don't realize the truth of our universe and who you are beyond this mortal existence. This mortal existence is such a small portion of who you really are, you guys. Who you really are is the whole ocean. But this mortal experience as a human is like the very white crest at the tip of a wave on the top of the ocean. You see a wave coming up out of the ocean? You know how it has like that little tiny centimeter tall, like white little crest at the tip of the wave, right? So the whole entire wave is below that, could be 6, 7, 8 inches, and then you've got the whole ocean too. And moral relativism says that that's true, and so that makes everything all right. Well, I don't know, guys. The ego serves a purpose. I made a live stream about this. I'll link it down below for you. What is the purpose of ego? Because this is a complex conversation, but it's all concept too. So none of this stuff has anything to do with spiritualism at all, really. Spiritualism is just the realization that you are consciousness. But again, you know, people place all kinds of things onto that. They try to hang a sign on spiritualism and it all becomes concept. So I'm kind of just talking about all of the different sides of what people have done in the name of God and or spiritualism. That's kind of what you're going to get when you talk about spiritual bypassing and moral relativism. So guys, do what's right. That's all I got for you, right? What do I do about all this, Kurt? Do what's right. Do what's right. You know what's right. And you know the truth. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. Great question. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I'll see you next time.